like me giving back, right? The other day, for real, like, I know y'all probably thinking all this internet stuff, bro. But I really could have lost my life, lost anything. I left without a scratch. That was God, bro. And it's y'all praying for me. It's everybody supporting me. And it's like me sacrificing, doing things that I really don't want to do. Doing things that make me uncomfortable. Doing things that make me scared. Like, I'm glad I did it. I just left a workout. My body's sore. But I'm so happy.
Stop scrolling. No, really stop, because this isn't regular celebrity drama. This is belief getting blindsided in public. But for months, Chrisean Rock wrapped herself in faith like a brand new personality update. Church talk. God quotes, "I'm changing. I'm healed." The internet watched a full spiritual rebrand roll out like a Netflix redemption arc, complete with tears, testimonies, and fans turning into digital prayer warriors overnight. People didn't just support her, they believed her. They defended her like it was ministry. They excused every misstep with grace. They said, "Leave her alone, God is working." And honestly, a lot of folks wanted to see her win so badly, they ignored the red flags, waving like they were on payroll. Then she said it.com. Casual, no. Apology filter. She admitted she turned her back on her fans. Not trolls, not haters. The same people who prayed for her, defended her, and held her up when nobody else would. And suddenly that faith arc felt less like salvation and more like a setup. Because when someone builds loyalty through belief and then casually walks away from the believers, that's not growth. That's a fake out dressed in scripture. And if this was a move, it makes the Kardashians look like amateurs. The shift didn't happen overnight. That's what makes it dangerous. Chrisean Rock didn't just wake up one day and say, "I found God." This was a slow rollout, a rebrand with layers. First came the softer tone, less screaming, more reflection. Then the language changed. "I'm growing, God working on me. Y'all don't know my journey." And the internet ate it up, because nothing hits harder than a comeback story wrapped in faith. It disarms critics. It turns skeptics into spectators. It makes accountability feel optional, because now any pushback can be labeled judgment. Fans leaned all the way in. They didn't just like posts. They defended her. Every messy headline got brushed off as old her. Every questionable move got reframed as part of the process. People who once dragged her started rooting for her like she was a prodigal daughter returning home, and Chrisean let it happen. She shared moments that felt intimate, talked about pain, talked about healing, talked about how she'd been misunderstood, how God saw her heart even when the world didn't. That kind of messaging creates a bond that goes deeper than fandom. It turns support into loyalty, loyalty into protection, protection into silence when things don't add up, and things stopped adding up. She began pulling away from the same fans who lifted her. Less engagement, shorter responses, colder energy. Supporters noticed, but they didn't question it openly. They justified it for her. She's protecting her peace. She doesn't owe us access. She's focusing on God. All valid statements individually, but stacked together. They started sounding like excuses for emotional distance that nobody wanted to confront. Then came the moment everything cracked. Chrisean didn't get exposed by a leaked message or a sneaky clip. She said it herself. Plain, direct, almost dismissive. She admitted she turned her back on her fans. No build-up, no apology cushion. No "I appreciate y'all, but," just honesty. And that honesty landed like a slap. Because these weren't casual followers. These were people who defended her at family dinners. People who argued with strangers online. People who prayed for her when she was spiraling publicly. Faith had been the glue holding that relationship together. And suddenly, that glue dissolved. People weren't mad at first. They were confused. Did she mean boundaries? Did she mean stepping back temporarily? Did she mean haters? No, she meant fans. The same ones who believed the faith arc was real. That's when disappointment turned into anger, because belief isn't transactional. Once you invite people into your spiritual narrative, you can't pretend it was just content when it stops serving you. Faith isn't a costume you hang back up when the applause dies down. Fans started replaying moments they once celebrated. The way scripture came out when criticism hit hardest. The way accountability always got rerouted into "God knows me." The way growth was claimed, but behavior stayed unpredictable. It didn't look like evolution anymore. It looked like deflection with a halo, and the sarcasm came out heavy. People joked that the faith arc had a trial period. Others said it was a pop-up church with no long-term lease. Memes flew, comparing the situation to a reality show baptism. Scene followed by the same old chaos in the next episode. Funny on the surface, painful underneath. Because for a lot of supporters, this wasn't about liking a celebrity. It was about seeing someone they related to find hope. People projected their own struggles onto her journey. Addiction, trauma, toxic relationships, survival. When she turned away from them emotionally, it felt personal. Not because she owed them her life, But because she used their belief as a shield, and shields come with responsibility, the backlash didn't explode immediately. It simmered. Comments got longer, defenses got quieter, support started to fracture. Some fans doubled down, insisting people were overreacting. Others admitted they felt foolish for believing so deeply. That split revealed something uncomfortable. Chrisean hadn't just divided opinion, she divided faith, and once belief fractures, it doesn't go back together cleanly. By the end of this phase, one thing was undeniable. This wasn't just a celebrity distancing herself from fans. This was a public reckoning over whether faith had been genuine or convenient. And the scariest part? Nobody knew the answer yet because the story was just getting warmed up. The moment that admission hit the timeline, the internet didn't gasp. It malfunctioned. Because belief getting shaken in public doesn't spark conversation. It sparks chaos. Within minutes, clips were ripped out of context and sprinted across social media like they were carrying breaking news codes. Not full explanations, not nuance, just the line that mattered most, framed to hit as hard as possible. Faith, fans turned her back. Boom. Reaction videos flooded in from people who hadn't supported Chrisean at all, suddenly acting like they'd been warning everyone from the start. Spiritual detectives with perfect hindsight, pastors of the comments section, philosophers with ring lights. Fans who once stood shoulder to shoulder, fractured instantly. One side rushed to defend her. She's allowed to grow privately. She doesn't owe y'all access. You turned her into a savior. The other side fired back with venom. Don't sell faith if you're gonna ghost believers. Don't preach growth and then treat supporters like disposable extras. You used God as a shield. And that's when it stopped being stan culture and turned into something darker, because this wasn't about liking a celebrity anymore. This was about trust. Memes poured gasoline on the fire. One joked that the faith arc came with a 7-day free trial and everyone forgot to cancel before getting emotionally charged. Another compared it to a reality show altar call, followed immediately by the same toxic storyline in the next episode. People laughed, but the laughter had teeth. It was the kind of humor that comes from embarrassment, because a lot of fans weren't mad. She set boundaries. They were mad. They believed in something that now felt hollow. Faith wasn't just inspirational wallpaper for them. It was personal. It was survival. People projected their own healing journeys onto hers. When she pulled away without acknowledgement, it felt like getting ghosted by hope itself. Celebrities started chiming in sideways, like they always do when they want engagement without accountability. Vague posts about keeping spirituality private. Quotes about God doesn't need a publicist. Long captions that said everything and nothing. The irony was thick enough to chew, because the same culture that rewards public vulnerability suddenly wanted to act shocked when vulnerability got questioned. You can't build a platform on confessionals and then clutch pearls. When people ask if the confession was real, Chrisean stayed mostly quiet while the storm raged. And silence, in this case, wasn't neutral. It was fuel. Without clarification, people started pulling receipts. Old interviews resurfaced where faith conveniently appeared, right when criticism peaked. Clips where accountability got redirected into God knows my heart. Moments where growth was claimed. But the behavior didn't shift. It just got reframed. Not proof of deception, but proof of convenience. And convenience is kryptonite to credibility. Supporters didn't want an explanation essay. They wanted recognition, a simple acknowledgement that the people who held her down mattered. Instead, they got emotional distance dressed up as self-care distance. It's different when it follows devotion. Comment sections transformed into full-blown theological debates run by people with zero credentials and unlimited confidence. Some accused her of spiritual manipulation. Others accused fans of parasocial delusion. Both sides talked past each other, convinced they were morally superior. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Nobody wanted to say out loud. Faith made the chaos easier to forgive. To say out loud. Faith made the chaos easier to forgive. It softened the rough edges. It made the mess feel meaningful. It turned destructive cycles into process. Once that framing cracked, all the unresolved behavior rushed back into focus without the halo filter. People weren't just angry at Chrisean anymore. They were angry at the system that rewards breakdowns until they get rebranded as breakthroughs. Angry at platforms that monetize pain and then pretend to care about healing. Angry at themselves for mistaking relatability for righteousness. Chrisean became a symbol whether she wanted to or not. To some, she represented fake growth. To others, misunderstood boundaries. Too many, a warning label about outsourcing belief to influencers. The discourse escalated beyond her name. Other celebrities with sudden faith eras got dragged into it. People started side-eyeing redemption arcs that conveniently aligned with image rehab, public backlash, or career turbulence. Every Bible verse, caption from every public figure, suddenly felt suspicious. It was open season. And then came the fatigue, because outrage burns fast, but disappointment lingers. Fans didn't all leave dramatically. Many just went quiet, unfollowed without announcement, stopped defending, stopped excusing. The loudest voices weren't haters anymore. They were former supporters asking one painful question: what was any of that for? That question hit harder than insults ever could, because it exposed the emotional investment beneath the drama. People weren't mad about content. They were mourning belief. And belief doesn't come back easily once it's cracked. By the end of this phase, the narrative had shifted completely. This wasn't about canceling Chris. This wasn't about proving her faith fake or real. That it was about credibility in an era where authenticity is currency and belief is exploited daily. And the scariest part? No one knew how this story could end cleanly, because once trust breaks in public, every future move gets filtered through suspicion. Every statement questioned, every silence analyzed, and as the noise peaked, one thing became painfully clear. The fallout wasn't loud anymore. It was settling. And when disappointment settles, it doesn't scream. It waits. The aftermath didn't explode. It settled. And that's always worse. When the noise faded and the memes stopped circulating, what remained wasn't outrage. It was discomfort. The kind that lingers after everyone realizes something meaningful got mishandled. And there's no clean way to rewind it. Chrisean didn't lose her platform overnight. That's not how this kind of fallout works. Instead, something subtler happened. The tone around her changed. Support didn't vanish. It thinned. Praise didn't stop. It softened. The energy that once felt protective started feeling cautious. And caution is loud, even when it's quiet. People stopped rushing to explain her behavior for her, but she's healing defense didn't hit the same anymore. Every move she made after that admission came with an invisible asterisk attached. Fans watched, but they watched differently now, not with hope. With hesitation. Faith, once introduced into a public narrative, doesn't leave quietly. It leaves fingerprints. And once those fingerprints look smudged, every future action gets examined under harsh lighting. Chrisean's words didn't just affect her image. They altered how people interpreted her intentions. Moments that would have once been called growth were now questioned as performance. Silence that once read as peace started reading as avoidance. And that shift, that's hard to reverse. Relationships around her felt the impact too. People close to her moved differently online. Less tagging, less vocal support, less visible alignment. Not because loyalty vanished, but because nobody wanted to get pulled into a conversation they couldn't control. Because once faith enters the room, everything becomes heavier. Critics sharpened their language. They stopped calling her chaotic and started calling her calculated. Supporters pushed back, but without the same fire. Even defenders admitted, quietly, that the delivery could have been handled better. That admission matters, because when your strongest supporters start adding "but" to their praise, the foundation is shifting. The public perception fractured into layers. Some believed she simply set boundaries poorly and got misunderstood. Others believed the faith arc was reactive, not rooted. Many didn't care about intent anymore. They cared about impact, and impact is where this story hit hardest. People who once felt inspired felt dismissed. People who leaned on her words during their own struggles felt left behind. Not because she owed them access, but because she invited belief and then closed the door without explanation. That doesn't make someone evil, but it does make people wary. Chrisean didn't issue a full clarification. She didn't backtrack. She didn't apologize in the way people expected. Instead, she kept moving forward, as if the conversation itself was something she'd already outgrown. That choice spoke volumes. Because ignoring disappointment doesn't erase it. It lets it harden. And hardened disappointment doesn't trend. It waits. It shows up later. When trust is needed and no one's willing to give it freely, the faith narrative never fully disappeared. It just stopped being protective. It no longer softened criticism. It no longer ended conversations. It became part of the record instead of the shield. That's a dangerous position for anyone whose public image is built on emotional connection. Every future statement about growth will now be measured against this moment. Every declaration of change will be met with, "We've heard this before." Every silence will be interpreted as intentional, whether it is or not. And that's the real consequence. Not cancellation, not backlash, not headlines. Skepticism. Because skepticism doesn't yell, it doesn't argue, it just withholds. The internet moved on, like it always does. New scandals replaced this one. New characters entered the cycle. But this story left resident. It became a reference point. A cautionary example people bring up when talking about public faith, influencer belief, and emotional branding. Chrisean became part of a larger conversation she didn't start but now represents. A conversation about how spirituality gets packaged, about how vulnerability gets rewarded until it gets questioned, about how belief becomes currency in a culture that consumes people whole. And the wildest part, this didn't end her career. It didn't destroy her base. It didn't silence her. It just changed the rules. Because now, people are watching with their guard up. And once an audience stops giving grace freely, every step forward feels heavier. This chapter didn't close with clarity. It closed with tension, with unresolved questions hanging in the air. Was the faith real but mishandled? Was it reactive and temporary? Was it sincere but poorly communicated? Nobody knows. And that uncertainty is the story now. Because when belief enters the spotlight, it demands responsibility, not perfection, responsibility. And once people feel like belief was treated casually, they don't rush back to trust the next message. They wait, they watch, and they remember. This wasn't just a misstep. It was a turning point. Because from here on out, every move gets judged against one haunting idea. If faith was once public, why did it feel disposable? And until that question finds an answer, the conversation isn't over, that's just quieter. And quieter stories are the ones that come back louder later. Before you click away like this didn't just shake your timeline, let's address the elephant doing laps in the room. You watched because it felt messy. You stayed because it felt personal. And you're still here because deep down, you know this wasn't just about Chrisean. This was about belief getting handled like content. So if this breakdown made you uncomfortable, smash that like button anyway. If it made you mad, smash it harder. And if you caught yourself defending someone you don't even know, congratulations. You're exactly who this conversation is for. Drop a comment and say it with your chest. Asterisk, was it growth or a faith? Boundaries or betrayal? Faith mishandled or faith misused? Don't be polite. This isn't Sunday service, it's the comments section. Hit subscribe. If you're tired of celebrity stories getting watered down, softened up, and wrapped in fake accountability, because when the next faith arc drops, when the next redemption tour rolls out with tears and captions, you're going to want context, not excuses. We don't do blind loyalty here. We don't do selective memory. And we definitely don't do spiritual branding without asking questions. Scandals don't stop, they just evolve. New faces, same cycles. Same audiences pretending they didn't fall for it last time, so stay locked in, stay skeptical, stay entertained. Because belief is powerful, and when it gets played in public, somebody's always left picking up the pieces. This is Viral TREK, where the mess isn't just reported, it's dissected. Where the mess isn't just reported, it's dissected.